Welcome to Tabla Talks, where we get the Indian community's reactions, reflections, and ruminations about the latest headlines of today. For our inaugural episode, we have three speakers who will be discussing PM Lawrence Wong's major announcements during the National Day rally. So thank you all for coming today. And why don't we just jump right in? What was probably one of the most surprising or exciting announcement personally for you all that PM Wong made during the NDR?
Yeah, the beauty about Singapore itself is reinventing itself every year, every moment. And that was the surprise, which I will say. When I say that, one, the single dot, the small dot, now it's become bigger. How the islands can come together, long islands. 50-year vision. The current government, which other nation can think of 50 years and 100 years again? That was miracle. Second, we all know the fertility rate is lower. And we are doing so many things. One of the reasons of everybody for a second or third child, they may defer because the cost of bringing up child is not one-time baby bonus. That was what available. I have 3 children. But they would grow up till 20, there is a cost involved. We can't fund all the costs, but this time it was very good in terms of staggered support during the whole period, right? Similarly, with the issue of, rich, they may be rich. At the old age, they want to sell the property, but they can't buy a HDB. Now the rules are changing. You can buy, singles can do. So the way in which adapt is what always I feel excited being a Singaporean.
Personally, think the best part of the National Day rally this year was the focus was driven more internal to look at the root issues that we have as Singaporeans moving forward. I think, like what Mr. Venkat mentioned, that the fertility rate is getting lower, and I also feel that it hit the nail right on the coffin to go and say that we are going to address these issues at hand right away. Of course, the jury's out in terms of whether or not that's going to really make a mark. We'll wait for that to see. We'll wait for that to materialize in the coming days. But it's a good start. I think the biggest surprise to me regarding the announcements was how much of a significant jump in terms of the support that was given before compared to what was having done before. So it's a big jump, a real big step taken ahead by PM this time round. And I think the task force has really put a great thought into how they want to go and address these issues. Yeah.
I think for myself, not very surprising per se, because I feel like there were announcements prior to this about some of the task force, the key issues that we're already looking at. But what was very promising about this was also the understanding, because so one aspect of things is that I'm also a grassroots leader.
Oh, nice.
So I lead the task force in Punggol Coast around families and seniors. And in my age group, in my 30s, I have a lot of conversations with my peers around families. We do see the total fertility rate dropping, right? So even with my friends, it's a very real consideration. So what I thought was very helpful was hearing more about the family level support. It isn't just about, having more babies, right? But the real considerations around bringing up family and what that looks like, whether it's in the workplace, whether it is support systems in terms of like financial support in the child's journey as a whole, and also that recognition of like continued care that's necessary, right? Beyond like individual households to the workplace settings, to the community setting. So I thought that was very promising in this year's discussion and announcements. So especially because we celebrated SG60 last year. So looking forward, right, our next 60 years, what does that look like? I think this was a good way forward in terms of the announcements that were made. Beyond that, I thought what was also really good was the acknowledgement that there are uncertainties, right? There is a level of turbulence that we're navigating, not just at a national level per se. It was really there are external forces that we're all navigating, and people are scared or worried. And so I feel like with the announcement, there was that assurance around that, there are steps that government is looking at, but as a society, we're also equipped to move forward in the best way possible.
All right. I think all three of you touched on the kind of drive for more support for families. So maybe we can start our discussion going in over there. Of course, there have been several financial incentives, totally almost over $70,000 of support given. But part of me feels that, and I think a lot of discourse is going online, whether just finances is enough to drive somebody to want to start a family. And is there something else that the government can touch on to help drive this, drive the TFR up? And also, would this mean that the intention of having a child change? Would somebody say, I can get more benefits if I have a child. Is that going to be the new, mindset?
No, definitely not. I think it's deeply personal to have a child, because being 3 daughters' father it's deeply personal, how you want to bring up your kids. But money plays an important role, because if I decide to have a kid, also there is an expenses which is important. I will broadly divide this into 2 categories. One will say this is a developed economy syndrome. World over, every developed economy have a fertility issue. What is controllable and personal, and what is uncontrollable? So controllable within government and at a personal level. At a government level, financial support, giving environment for us to get it better, right? Policy decisions can change. I'm also 22 years in grassroots, so one of the discussion when we have, and I also mentor people, I realize the boys go to NS. So they get to know a girl, become friends. Boy go to NS, girl go to studies. 2 years down the line, when you come back, girl is already up. And that's happening in the career. So that relationship of friendship converting into a love and marriage at an early stage get broken. So this is a policy issue. I don't know whether girls should also do NS, I don't know. But I'm just saying these are the impediments in some form and manner, right? Similarly, having a house, because we need to have financial security. I know my own staff used to save money for marriage. They do ROM, but they wait for the money to be there for the party, etc. So there is an economic criteria. So these are the areas where policies we can step in. So this money support in right direction, is it going to solve completely? No. But will it be helping somebody thinking that I want to have, but I can't have it because of my economic condition? Yes, I'm coming and helping you. In that sense, it's a caring, concerning government. Hence, I don't want to criticize. I feel that it is supportive.
I think further to the point Mr. Venkat just made, in my opinion, I think the reason why you see a sharp decline in the fertility rate may not be an economic decision. It is probably due to a lot of the social pressures that are on people's shoulders at this point of time. If you look from a day-to-day basis, I think given the current cost of living, you are envisioning a society whereby a lot of the upcoming youths may or may not be able to go and afford housing at this point of time, which means they are having to stay in with their parents until they can take that step forward. Given that, you will find a lot of people who is of my age right now, say probably about 36, who are really sandwiched in between needing to take care of their parents, who are obviously aging, and also having to consider whether or not to go and have a child.
Beautiful.
How are we going to look into these aspects to really navigate through these difficulties? Because if you look at it this way, the grants given by the government, they solve part A of the issue for maybe about 30 to 40% of the youths in the system right now, who may or may not be parents at this point of time. We are looking at the perspective of the elderly care, in the sense, for those 40% of people. And these are youths that are coming up. You see people, it's a problem that is going to scale all the way around, because the later people have kids, the older their parents are going to become. You're going to see the whole sandwich getting closer together. So that's one, a social issue that you face. The second issue that they tentatively face is a cost issue, which is, okay, it's being addressed to a certain degree. New parents would be able to benefit from this. Parents who are already past a certain degree, would they then be able to bear the full cost of having a child versus the full cost of having to maintain the education, the housing and whatnot? So even though it's a good approach not to criticize, but it's a good approach, but not a holistical approach at this point of time. Yeah.
So there are aspects to this that I definitely agree with, right? So I think, from an economic standpoint and consideration, it's good that there are policies and support systems in place to make sure, at least from that economic standpoint, people feel comfortable making that decision. So on the social point, I feel like that's what speaks to me more, right? It's really about how do people feel supported if they want to make that decision to become parents. But in the conversations I have with friends who are making that decision, it isn't just about becoming parents. They also want to be good parents. And what that means to them, and they feel like they also need to be able to choose themselves. in that process so that they can show up as good parents, right? So in terms of like the mental load that it takes to be a parent, currently there's a lot of pressures. I think we come from a generation where there's greater awareness around how we need to show up, right? The capabilities that we have to be better parents for the kids. And I think that comes with a lot of pressure as well. So there are real considerations around making that decision. It also comes to that level of like, you know, you mentioned about sandwich generation, and I really resonate with that because within our age group, people are caring for our parents' generation, but also considering whether they want to have kids, right? And then when they have kids, they're taking care of like these both sides of things, which comes with a lot of time, effort and energy, while also managing competing priorities, which is, you know, how do you manage your careers, right? And now there's a real need for most families, they have like dual income. So both parents are working. A lot of grandparents might be hands-off grandparents. I think back in the day, so even yourself, you're already like, you're still very engaged, right? So I'm not sure if your daughters have kids yet.
Not it.
Okay. No pressure to them. Either that's their decision. But that's a reality. Like a lot of people in the older generation might still be engaged with work. So I think that's a reality of it in terms of like community level support from the direct families, right? Whether there's extended family that can come in to help as well. Yeah, so I think those are some very real realities, and that's where we also need to look at, you know, whether there is accompanying infrastructure support, right? There's physical spaces that enable the sort of like work, life, and play kind of balance that we're all hoping for. On the other hand, it's also about the other social support systems that are available. And then I thought what was very helpful was in the workplace, there's more parental leave that is given. So I think people were very excited about that. So that was a good thing. But the other side of things is also about, you know, what implications are that for parents when they do take that leave, right? If women were to go on like maternity care, can we make sure that they're not being left behind or they're not being penalized for it in making these decisions as parents? In terms of like caregiving, there is a mental load that comes with that, but there's also a lot of unpaid labor that comes with that, right? So are we going to recognize that? Well, is there a way forward in which, I don't know whether it's from government side, from a community level, there's a recognition for it, but then also there are different intersectional lenses where we also need to acknowledge that women bear the brunt of it as well, right? So realistically, how can we make sure that women are better supported through that journey, and there's again recognition for the work that's being done?
I think it's interesting, Nava, what you were bringing up about especially women. Another thing in discourse that I mean we've seen is that kind of in terms of women empowerment, women who are thinking about having their careers, perhaps they are the people who, you know, don't want to have children because they are more focused on their careers, and there are still these barriers for that that could, and having children could, you know, create even more barriers. So with this focus, do you think that there has to also be the conversation about how are we centering women empowerment once again in this conversation? Is the value of a woman going back to just being, oh, you know, do some people feel that the value of being a woman goes back to just being able to have children?
I mean, there are many layers to this discussion, right? I mean, one, I want to acknowledge that women are empowered, and that's a good thing. We live in a time where, again, I don't know how else to address the patriarchy, but there are patriarchal systems that have been in place for a very long time. So I'm glad that we're in a place that women have rights to vote, as we should, right? And we have the ability to participate in society and in the workplace. And so I must say women are empowered. And then it comes into question, like, okay, then why are at least women, you know, having these discussions around whether we want to have kids or not, right? And I think men need to be part of that conversation. So when people have partners, it's also about having a supportive partner, right? Being in supportive workplaces. And again, when we look at leadership percentage in different workplaces, we also need to acknowledge there are places where there might be more men. Sometimes it can be hard to have that discussion around, you know, bringing up real considerations around family planning, because how many men get asked that question? Like, are you ready to have kids, right? Is your career going to be jeopardized? But we tend to ask women these questions, which we shouldn't have to. And we shouldn't be living in a world where women get jeopardized for their careers simply because they choose to be parents. And at the same time, and so statistically this is shown, when women have children, they're seen as having more liability, versus when men have children, they're seen as being more committed leaders and having more leadership qualities, right? So we still live in a world where there is that disparity, and we need to acknowledge that and then understand what are either policies or measures or even like mindset shifts that we need to have in workplaces and in society to enable these decisions to be made by both parents.
Yeah, all right. And Rajesh, you were talking about the sandwiching between the aging population, the elderly care versus, of course, these young families.
Yep.
But I mean, the context was more for within the same family.
Yep.
But you know, just in the last few months, we've seen headlines of so many clashes between these generations, different interactions. You know, the question of who gets to have the priority seat or who gets to have the handicap spot in a bus. Is it a new family with a stroller, or is it an elderly person with a wheelchair? And you know, that's going to be that's just going to increase even more as we go on. So maybe what do you think are some suggestions or policy ideas or anything else that you might suggest for the government to help bridge this gap?
Wow, that's a question that has no limit in terms of answer, but I will try to address that. I think in terms of policies as you move forward, I think one step that you can truly look into is, from a social point of view at least, because that's where I hail from, is to try to find ways to really rekindle and reignite the spark between the families. I think in a sense what's missing at this point of time, because it's so hustle and bustle and you know, we don't have time, we don't have the patience to be able to deal with so-called another person's problems, that we are so consumed by our need that we need to fix our own. So I think one aspect is, if you are looking at certain policy shift, first is a mindset shift towards how we can be a little bit more open-hearted, kind-hearted as a community. And I think with that, it starts at home first. If you love where you come from and you are able to develop that essence of so-called love and happiness moving forward, then I think it will slowly trickle down into how you behave in your daily lives in that way. So just to peel the curtain back a little bit, so I have 3 kids who are 8, 5 and 4. I also live with my parents. So sometimes things may not be that smooth because of certain timing issues, constraints. Who do I take care of, right? Do I take care of my kids, or do I take care of my parents and whatnot? But overall, the culture in the home is a happy one.
Beautiful.
We understand the concept of needing to make a sacrifice for a better tomorrow and a better human being and a better character. So with that now, I mean, safe to say, the kids that are going out on their own, they are going out on their own with certain expectations of how they need to behave, and also with their own self-esteem to go and say, I know what's right and what's wrong, I know who deserves what and who doesn't. And the comparison is not there. It's a cultural, educational, social issue that has to be molded into one nice little package for us to go and train, or rather not train is the wrong word, for us to impart onto the younger generation, and likewise on the older generation as well. Because I think they also may find it tough to see that a lot of the shift of focus is moving away from them, whereby, you know, there's this lingering doubt, lingering thought to go and say, hey, you know what, I'm the one that fought for this country to put it where it is right now. Don't I deserve a place at the table, or don't I deserve a seat in the train? So both ways, if you're able to look at the community aspect of imparting the right kind of knowledge and the right kind of good-hearted spirit, I think it'll solve the problem moving forward.
Yeah.